Hi students, welcome to lesson number 11, caste stratification in India, present situation of caste in rural and urban areas. Now let us start with the introduction. Caste is a major form of stratification as defined by sociologists. There is a general understanding that caste and class are polar opposites. It is also understood that caste is a rural phenomena while class is found in urban communities. But in fact, there are classes in a caste. There are castes in urban communities. Caste is not regimental. It is always changing, but its essential characteristics continues to remain, and the changes are operational only and they make a difference of degree only. Caste system has a greater operational or functional role in the village compared to the cities. Now let us learn the objectives. The objectives of the lesson are to know the importance of caste stratification in India, to learn the changing status of caste in rural and urban areas. According to Yogendra Singh, caste is a cultural phenomena. Further, the concept of caste, besides being a cultural phenomena, caste is also a structural phenomena. Caste as a structural phenomena considered it as a system of social organization, an institutionalized system of interaction among hierarchically ranked hereditary groups for marriage, occupation, economic division of labor, enforcement of cultural norms and values by the caste bodies, and performance of rituals based on principles of purity and pollution. The caste endogamy, the caste occupations and hierarchy are the structural properties of the caste and have direct bearing on social stratification. The cultural aspects of value based, the caste system in rural India has little specificity, which make caste a particularistic in rural societies. The specificities of caste in rural society. Caste has a functional role in maintaining the village social system. Some of the special functions performed by the caste in villages are as follows: the individual life cycle, which passes through birth, betrothal, marriage and death. On all these occasions, caste has a definite role. A Brahmin presence is obligatory to officiate at the fulfillment of the rituals on major phases of life. In Indian villages, caste specialists are essential functionaries. The endogamy and exogamy. One cannot marry within his sister, nor can he marry with any of his agnates. Marriage within the gotra or clan is prohibited. The rule of exogamy is strictly observed in village society, and sometimes there is practice of village exogamy. The occupational interdependence, division of labor is based on caste system, but earlier village economy was dependent on the Jajmani system. Each caste had its occupational specialization, and these castes gave their services to their Jajman on exchange basis. On the whole, the caste economy promotes occupational interdependence among different castes in a village. The caste association in rural society, which has got its caste association, the caste association have become stronger in village India today. But at the same time, rural India, many of the political decisions are made by caste associations. Caste is the mirror of rural society. A village is identified in a region in terms of its power through caste settlement. S.C. Dubey talks about a Rajput village which wields power. They maintain the village system. Likewise, we have the Jat villages, the Brahmin villages and so on. In such villages, other castes are also found, but they are only subordinate caste. In such situation, the structure of a village is known by the caste groups inhabiting it. It is because of this situation we call caste as the mirror of a village. The dominant caste. This is a caste which has a numerical strength in the village. It owns major portion of village land and takes major decisions which maintain the village system. It is the dominant caste which rules over the village. The concept of dominant caste clearly shows that there are few castes which exercises their hold on the village. M.N. Srinivas has given the concept of dominant caste. According to Andre Bettel, despite changes in villages, the dominant caste occupy a pivotal status in rural society. The hierarchical relations in a village, social interactions are guided by caste status. It is a pyramid of hierarchy. It is a pyramid of hierarchy where at the top Brahmins followed by Rajput etc. A.R. Desai has observed that caste has fixed the psychology of various social groups and has evolved the great levels of social distance and superiority relationships that the social structure looks like a hierarchy pyramid. Caste and economic life, which is the caste which determines the economic life of the people. Despite diversification in village economy, the traditional occupations determined the wealth status of the people. The caste has a role in the production relations. In any part of the country, habitation pattern of the village is determined by a specific caste clusters. Belongingness to a caste not only determines the pattern of settlement, but also the type of house a person would build. Mobility, a person or cluster's economic mobility is determined by the caste. Change in a village is relative to the village caste. Some castes have given away their traditional occupations, while at the same time there are castes that are very rigidly follow their traditional occupations. Caste and joint family, where it is the caste structure which determines the nature of the family, either it is joint or nuclear. In the village, it is observed in India that a caste in the rural society is a cluster of joint families. Consequentially, the caste molds the nature of the life of the members of a family. Thus, it is the caste character which determines to a great extent the nature of rural society. Changes in the rural caste system. The rural stratification which is dominated by caste is changing rapidly. Caste is assuming a new role in rural India. This is the new form or avatar caste. Significant changes have taken place over the past years. These changes are conceptualized into two forces, the structural changes and the peripheral changes. Structural changes have far-reaching impact on the rural caste system. These changes are the abolition of zamindari and jagirdari system, introduction of panchayat raj, adult franchise, cooperatives, etc. The peripheral changes comprise establishment of modern schools, the construction of roads, public health centers, communication links and migration. Now, let us study the major structural and peripheral changes influencing the rural caste system. 1. Modernization and sanitization. Modernization is a complex term. It includes education, politics, power, style of life and a large number of other aspects of life. Here are the castes which have discarded traditional occupations because they were considered impure or unclean, or lower because of the stigma about polluting nature of the traditional occupations. The village caste system has received phenomenal change in its structure due to the process of sensitization. The change brought by this process is a positional change. In this change, there is horizontal mobility in the caste structure. Sensitization as a process of social change or mobility was introduced by M.N. Srinivas in 60s. It is a social change within the caste system. It is mere imitation of the customs and practice of the higher caste by the lower caste. The caste which Sanskritize their pantheon and rituals think that their status are lower in social hierarchy because of the customs, practices and occupations they carry on. These castes try to improve their social status by rejecting some their traditional styles of life and by imitating the cultural styles of the upper caste. Modernization has affected the occupational structure of village caste. The barbers have now begun to suffix their name with Brahma, the Sharma. All these occupational changes indicate that Sanskritization has brought changes in the rural caste system. Desanskritization, which is another observed change in the rural caste system, is the working of the process of desanskritization. According to K. L. Sharma, some of the higher caste are giving up their Sanskritic values in order to have interaction with the lower caste. The Rajputs now do not hesitate to touch the untouchables. Occasionally, they would not mind to share the smoking with the lower caste. This kind of change is characterized as desanskritization. The concept of purity and pollution has undergone drastic change with the passage of time. People of different caste mix freely in public place, workplace, offices and in educational institutions. The values of achievement. The national values of democracy, socialism and secularism has influenced the importance of rituals in the rural life. The value of achievement orientation is being accepted by the higher caste. Because of this, the traditional rules of food and water taboos are very openly violated. Commensality has become a common thing on occasions of marriage and other celebrations. One can find the lower caste mixing with the higher caste in political meetings. Change from a closed system to open system. Caste is changing from a closed to an open system. This implies that mobility has been placed within the caste system. Sanskritization has simplified then the process of mobility which take place within the caste system. Further, change of ideology, values, institution and technology of a non-Western society has result of cultural contact with the Western society for a long time. Education, which is one of the important determinants of status in the present day rural community. The higher caste have taken up or rather cornered most of the facilities of higher education. This gave them a new job opportunities for the rural higher caste. The proletarianism. In the process of social change and particularly the opportunities of development given to the lower caste, the higher caste find their status withdrawal. Such a kind of process has reduced the status of higher caste to that of proletariat. Hostility and tension. A new kind of change is observed among the lower caste of villages. According to V. S. Naipal, there is an awakening among the subjugated people of the society. The lower caste have emerged with the arm in hand as a powerful segment of the society to rise against the upper caste. People have ideas now of who they are and what they owe themselves. The process quickened with the economic development that came after independence. The hegemony of the higher caste. The higher caste who own the larger portions of the land now have been reduced to the smaller portions of the land. The lower caste are fast reduced to the status of marginal agricultural caste. According to Kolenda, there is social mobility within caste but not mobility in the caste system. Shift in the sources of power. In the past, the status of a person was overwhelmingly determined by the size of land owned by him. The larger the size of the land owned by a person, higher was his status. Today, new sources of status in the village have emerged. These status have their origin in the positions of power. A position in the government service gives status to a person, also prestige and power. A position in assembly or parliament gives status to a man. Thus, the power structure associated with different castes has undergone major changes. Change in power and domination. People had the idea that the law of karma determines the caste in which a man is born. The lower caste looks upon their caste status as something for which they are responsible by their own acts in the past lives. Each member used to perform the caste rule, and it was believed that violation of the caste discipline was a sin. This type of attitude is not found nowadays. There is a claim for equal right and equal opportunities. Change in intercaste relations. The traditional intercaste relations involved prescribed and clear-cut rights, obligations, authority and subordination. But now, the lower caste members are not obliged to carry out the orders of the members of the higher caste. They hesitate to perform forced labor for upper caste. They even resist to carry on their traditionally prescribed occupations such as removing the dead animals, beating of the drums at the festivals of village gods and removing of leaf plates on which people belonging to the caste dine. As a result, the natural rights and obligations have crumbled down. The new horizons of the caste. Traditionally, the caste boundaries were limited to the village or to a cluster of villages. With the administrative and regional affiliations, the caste and the kin have got wider networks spread over to the state or region. The contemporary changes provide the basis for vertical unity in India on the basis of caste. The rural caste system. Some social scientists argue that caste and class are not polar opposites. There is a continuum between the two. There is class in caste and the Kshatriya is a caste, but there are classes of Kshatriya. Poor and rich. Both caste and class as forms of stratification are found in rural society. According to Andre Bettel, in West Bengal, an agricultural caste is moving towards the formation of a class. But the change from caste to class is amorphous, which means that the form of class which is emerging among the Jotadas is not of any definite shape or structure of a class. In India, the traditional system of inequalities based on caste is being replaced by class system in rural areas. It is clear that caste is declining in Indian villages. Class is replacing caste, but the form of class which is emerging has not taken a proper shape of class, according to Paul and Kolenda, who debates by saying that village caste system is changing to village class system. Kolenda revealed that there are a variety of ways through which people lose their land. Such caste sold their land to pay debt, contesting elections, etc. The class which is emerging is not a rich class but a middle class. The village class system does not enrich a man to become a rich class because there are opportunities outside the village to amass money. The factors of transformation of caste into class in rural society, the government policy. The Green Revolution, White Revolution, irrigation and electric supply has gone mostly in favor of the big farmers. But in fact, the benefits of development program have been largely cornered by the big landowners. The advance of a capitalist mode of agricultural production has in essence been pushed through by a class of large and middle farmers, originating from intermediate caste who have gradually gained dominance in the recent decades. The working classes have derived from much less profit from the extension of employment which has accompanied the transformation. The southern and western parts of India, the intermediate caste have become middle classes. This process of social formation is mainly due to the role of state and the policy of rural development. The correlation between caste and class. Caste and class are a mixed phenomenon in India's rural society. The zamindars and the jagirdars have come out as capitalist peasants. The former higher caste have become today higher classes. The intermediate classes have become classes. The former higher caste have become higher classes. The difference is that caste as a feudal organization and its change into class is capitalistic. The dominant caste replaced. The concept of dominant caste lost much of its relevance today. The big land owners have migrated to urban and industrial communities, have taken new sources of income or have been deprived of land due to ceiling legislations. The members of the weaker sections have got new power from democratic institutions. The empowerment of weaker sections has brought these sections in competition with the former power elites. Caste, land and the politics make class. The caste is a system of hierarchy related to and land politics. The idea of class is also inherent in a class. In the changing scene, the relationship of caste hierarchy, the notion of purity and pollution in relation to land owned by a particular caste and its power structure is analyzed. When the land and the power undergo change, resultantly the caste structure also witnesses changes and these changes relate to class. In the contemporary competing demands of each caste group, the caste assumes the role of class. Thus, political and economic consideration turn a caste into a class. The capitalist mode of production caste into class transformation. The green revolution coupled with introduction of new technology have revolutionized the mode of production in agriculture. Advanced technology, new yielding varieties and chemical manure can be fruitfully employed by big farmers who have capacity to invest in agricultural production. This innovation resulted the emergence of the rural caste system into rural class system. According to K. L. Sharma, the capitalistic mode of production in agriculture has not only polarized the rural class structure in farms in terms of rich and the poor, the dominant and the weak, the upper and the lower segments of society. New emerging agricultural classes in rural India. New agricultural classes have brought out a new classification of agricultural caste. In the field of agricultural production or in peasantry, there are some classes. These classes are agricultural classes. Differences in the size of land holdings have created diverse agricultural classes in rural society. The classification of agricultural classes is as follows: the big farmers, the small farmers, marginal farmers, landless laborers. Caste in urban areas. There are numerous studies conducted on analyzing patterns of intercaste relations, caste and occupations, the changes in the caste system and the impact of industrialization, urbanization and democratization etc. on the Indian caste structure. These studies are also concerned with the emerging patterns of social stratification in the growing urban communities in India. Traditionally, the social structure of Indian society has been vertical and one-dimensional. The caste status was consistent with the other statuses in the different dimensions of social life like education, income and occupation. The lower caste, because of rigid restrictions, could never achieve higher status in any of the dimensions in the past. Since mobility, either caste or occupational, was restricted, there was little scope for achieved status. Thus, the ritual status in the caste system corresponds horizontally and vertically with the non-ritual status. In the mid-20th century, the forces of modernization, effective as they are in the urban India today, which has given immense opportunities to the members of different castes to achieve a higher status in non-ritual dimensions. This has shaken the traditional caste structure and has accelerated escalation of statuses, occupational and others, and has provided momentum to the social mobility. The Government of India focused on facilitating the process, but at the same time actively encouraged the lower caste to attain equal or higher status while competing with the other caste in the educational, economic, political and occupational dimensions. Caste and class. There are several dimensions of a social theme or social issues. In no period of history caste has been only cultural or structural. It involves power and economy in hierarchy. There have been Brahmins who have lived a life of proletariat. Thus, historically it is said that caste includes the attributes of a class also, that is power and economic status. Now, caste, class and power are not differentiated in any scheme of stratification in rural India. Caste, class and power are the three inseparable dimensions of stratification. There is a close link between the upper caste, the class and the power. It would be right to say that the rural social stratification is changing in India. The caste is becoming weaker due to influence of factors as industrialization, increase in the means of transportation, popularity of English education, political and social awakening, democratic, the government and the laws abolishing untouchability, etc. On the other basis of occupation, post capacity, etc. are being established. Due to an increase in the desire for more, the influence of materialistic landless superiority or inferiority is now based on wealth and social power rather than on caste. Thus, the caste consciousness is being replaced by class consciousness. In view of the changes, it is believed that the caste system will take on the form of a class system. To sum up the lesson, caste is a cultural phenomena. The concept of caste, besides being a cultural phenomena, it is also a structural phenomena. Caste as a structural phenomena, consider it as a system of social organization, an institutionalized system of interaction among the hierarchically ranked hereditary groups for marriage, occupation, economic, division of labor, enforcement of cultural norms and values by caste bodies and performance of the rituals based on the principles of purity and pollution. The rural stratification, which is dominated by caste, is changing rapidly. Caste is assuming a new role in rural India. The important changes have taken place over the past years. These changes are conceptualized into two forces, the structural changes and peripheral changes. Thank you.